What up, what up, what up, what up, and what up? What's going on, folks? Welcome to episode number 36 of the Spun Today podcast. I am your host, Tony Ortiz. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to break up the monotony this week from the usual free writing format of the podcast, and this is going to be a random rant, which is going to be more so like the intro portions of the free writing podcasts that you guys are used to. So if you enjoy that portion, you're going to like this episode. It's going to be short and sweet, and it's not going to have on any of the free writing stuff that I normally have towards the end of it. But if you feel like you're missing out, feel free to visit spuntoday.com and check out some of my free writing or short stories and what have you. That said, there are a couple of new questionnaire submissions that we received that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. And that's pretty much it. So with that said, let's get cracking. UFC 194 is first up on my list. 13 motherfucking seconds. Conor McGregor backed up all his tough talk, all his shit talking, all his bullshit, backed it up once again. And leading up to the fight, I wasn't convinced. I was thinking Aldo was gonna win. I thought he was gonna shut up McGregor. And then literally I think like 2 days before the fight, I was just rewatching some like the promos and the training sessions and like stuff like that on YouTube and a bunch of videos. And I remember hitting up one of my boys and I was like, nah, fuck it, bro. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm going McGregor. McGregor's gonna take it. And he fucking did it in 13 seconds. Broke UFC record in winning a championship fight. Ronda Rousey had the record prior to him with 14 seconds, and he did it in 13. It was fucking nuts. I was watching it with my brother, and he was like, what the fuck happened? I thought Aldo like slipped or something too. Like I didn't even notice it. I didn't see it until the instant replays showed how McGregor pretty much clipped him clean on his jaw with a left hook. And it's so much so that Aldo actually connected with McGregor, but he was knocked out before he connected, but the swing was like mid swing already, going towards McGregor's face, and McGregor caught him before he got caught himself. And you could tell like right before it, Aldo's fist connected with McGregor's face, that it went kind of limp because he was already like knocked out, and he just fucking dropped. And then McGregor knocked him out. Spoiler alert if you guys haven't seen the fight. McGregor just jumped on him and got two very clean, very connected hammer fists, and Aldo went stiff and knocked him out. And I definitely have to say I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a fight, maybe at least like half a round or something like that, just to see a bit of an exchange between the two after all the hype. And not McGregor, Aldo kind of said, he must have been frustrated and pissed off and stuff like that. So I can't hold it too much against him, but he kind of said that it wasn't a real fight. He caught him, kind of like insinuating like a lucky punch or whatever, I guess. And Rogan called him out on it right at the end of the fight and pretty much said it was a real fight. It's just one where you got caught and you got knocked out very quickly. And it's true, you got knocked the fuck out. And I don't know, that was it was sick. it was a very, very sick exclamation point indeed for McGregor, wiping out the division like he said he would. And now the question is, if he's going to move up to, what is it, 175, 150, what is he, 155? He's going to move up to whatever Dos Anjos and Donald Cerrone's weight classes, and he wants to hold that belt too. When he was in his previous organization, he actually held the two belts simultaneously in those two weight classes, so he has done it before, and he was already talking shit like in press conferences to Dos Anjos and also to Cowboy Cerrone about that, about moving up in weight class and taking their belt as well. And it was funny because he tells Cowboy Cerrone, like in an exchange, that then at 155 they're stiff as a board, and he's gonna snap them like a board. And Donald Cerrone told him that he's gonna bend him over and knock the Lucky Charms out of his ass. It was hilarious. Just like the hype for the fight between those two would be awesome, because they would get like at each other in a funny way like that, I think, and it would be entertaining to watch. But yeah, it would be interesting if it goes that route. Now the other route, which I rather it go this way, because he absolutely deserves it. Frankie Edgar deserves a shot at that title before McGregor moves up in weight. And he, Friday night before UFC 194, Frankie Edgar fought Chad Mendes, which Chad Mendes is the guy that McGregor's last fight was against Chad Mendes, who took the fight on short notice because Jose Aldo, the guy that McGregor just knocked out in 13 seconds, because he got hurt. So Chad Mendes stepped in on 2 weeks notice, 2 or 3 weeks notice, and fought and did fairly okay against McGregor. He had McGregor, took McGregor down. I'm not sure if it was like for the first time, but he took McGregor down. He was like ground and pounding him and using his wrestling skills. But he supposedly was hurt, according to him, and also, only had like 2 to 3 weeks of training notice. So while I'm getting knocked out also by McGregor. And similarly, he just fought, that guy Chad Mendes just fought Frankie Edgar, and Frankie Edgar knocked him out in the first round. And Frankie Edgar's been calling for a title shot for some time, and some people thought that Frankie Edgar should have gotten the title shot when Chad Mendes did, and he wanted it before the fight that I think actually after that point, I'm not too sure. I know he's definitely wanted a title shot for a while. McGregor just got the the fight against Chad Mendes is when he got the interim title. And before that, Frankie, I guess, wanted to fight Aldo, or he just wants a title shot, period. But that's another interesting direction that division can go in, which would be cool to see. I like Frankie Edgar a lot, and definitely I feel that he deserves that title shot. Then if McGregor were to win that, then move up in weight and do what you got to do in the next weight class. Then the next fight, which was a really good fight, had a bit of a back and forth, which was Rockhold versus Weidman. And I noticed, when I don't want to sound like a fucking wannabe Walter Mercado or some shit like that, but it was kind of like that. I was thinking of the book Blink, by Malcolm Gladwell, and the specific example from that book of I think it was the tennis coach that could spot like the great tennis players or whatever, just from the way that they serve. I got a weird like premonition when Weidman was coming out, and he just, I don't know, he just seemed off, like just from his walk, the way he was walking, like to the octagon. Something seemed off, and I told my brother that, and then again, spoiler alert for those of you that don't know, he lost for the first time, lost his undefeated record, lost his UFC middleweight title, and it fucking sucks. I like wanted him to win. I was really rooting for him, you know, not just because of the whole like New York thing, but he's one of those like poster boy champion guys, good hardworking dudes, and he, at the same time, he also always had like that stigma of not being the real deal, even though he's proven it, you know, by beating Machida, by, you know, after both Anderson Silva debatable flukes, he, you know, by beating Machida, by beating what's his face, a steroid fucking using dude, I forget his name, Brazilian guy, and in like really spectacular fashion, you know what I mean? It wasn't like fluky wins after that. He's pretty much solidified himself, and I know this one was the one that I felt if he had won, it would like definitely solidify him up there. But I don't know, he just never really got the love, that much love, you know, from, you know, fans, and he just, like I said, he had that stigma about him, and he fucking lost to Rockhold. But respect to Rockhold, who has sick fucking kicks. God damn, he has sick kicks, and did an awesome job. And I can't believe Herb Dean didn't stop it. When there was like 25 to 20 seconds left, I guess he was like trying to give Weidman a chance to get like Saved by the Bell, and he kind of sort of stopped it at the end, like with 0 seconds left. He started waving his arms, but at that point, I guess he was considered Saved by the Bell. And then after that, Rockhold just, you know, demolished him. And yeah, that was pretty much it. That was UFC 194 for me anyway. Those were there were a couple dope fights, both in the undercard and the main card. Who's that dude? There's this English dude, Holloway, who looks like a Mexican dude. His fight was not as entertaining as they usually are. His are usually pretty entertaining, but he won. And who else? Uriah Faber's fight was dope. That would be interesting now to see. He's gearing up to fight TJ Dillashaw, or that's a fight I want to see. Dillashaw versus Cruz, Dominic Cruz, and any one of them, whoever wins from that versus Uriah Faber would be both have ill like background stories and storylines with each other. TJ Dillashaw used to be Team Alpha Male and fucking like protege of Uriah Faber, and they recently, you know, they always said they would never fight each other. That's why Uriah Faber went to a different weight class, but now they're back in the same weight class, and TJ Dillashaw is the champion, and he's no longer with that camp anymore. And they've, you know, have said things of each other in different interviews, and Dominic Cruz just hates all fucking alpha male, Team Alpha Male, calls them alpha fails, and they have like a long rivalry. And yeah, that would be, you know, whoever TJ Dillashaw versus Dominic Cruz is going to be a dope fight, and then whoever wins from that versus Uriah Faber would make for a dope fight as well. Then you had Yoel Romero, fucking what's his name? His name is funny. His fucking fighting nickname thing, Soldier of God, and he looks like a fucking chiseled statue. And he won his fight. I think he's next in line for a title shot now, I guess, in the middleweight division. And yeah, it was a pretty stacked fucking card, man. I enjoyed watching the fights. I normally don't order the fights except for like big ones like this. You usually just download them the next day on fucking Pirate Bay or some shit like that, allegedly. But the ones like this, the big ones like that, definitely have to watch, have to download, have to watch that shit live. There were a couple of movies that I saw since last time. Damn, I feel like I haven't recorded in a while, even though I recorded less than 2 weeks ago. But I'm reading my notes here because I like write myself notes on my phone of shit that I want to bring up on the next episode of the podcast. And then I pretty much compile my list of show notes, bullet points and shit based on that list on my phone, and clear it out. And then, whatever happens to me in the next 2 weeks, shit that I see or witness or hear about or whatever that I feel like speaking about on the podcast, I just jot it down on my phone and, do that over and over again, basically. And I'm reading from my notes here, and it feels like I watched this shit like months ago, but I didn't. A couple things that I saw. One movie, which was Nightcrawler, which I know I'm fucking late on. I've been wanting to watch it for a while. It was one of those movies that either was up for awards or should have been up for awards. Like just barely didn't make the cut, if I'm not mistaken. That was when like Boyhood and Birdman and those movies came out. This was a really, really fucking good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, and I definitely recommend it. It's really interesting to see, like within the context of that movie. It's this journalist, TMZ style journalism, and how they were just really portraying a sociopath. And there's people like that all around us all the time that, maybe to lesser degrees, but people that you work with, friends of yours, people that you think are your friends, family members, different, at all different levels of that type of narcissistic, I want what I want no matter what type of personalities, which is what Jake Gyllenhaal's character portrays in the movie, in my opinion. And not even an opinion, I think it's pretty blatant, but I've definitely encountered my fair share of people like this, or just people that have stints of that specific personality trait where it's just no holds barred. They don't give a fuck who's in the way, what's in the way. They just go for what it is that they want. And I've always, I guess, taken from those types of experiences the fact that there's ways to go about things. There's a way to, go hard or go home. And there's just ways not to do it. I think the character in the movie, it completely embodies the way not to go about doing things. Even though he was successful, he was successful in certain goals that he had set for himself, whether it was getting with the lady, which was just a puzzle piece in his, big picture of, owning his business and starting his journalistic empire. But everything that he wanted from manipulating that worker that he had, he got. And the movie ended off pretty much with him continuing in that direction, in that upward progression. And it's kind of like, at what cost though, right? And shit like that usually catches up with people, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, people never get caught for shit wrongdoing or whatever, however you want to look at it. But more often than not, they do. And even if they don't, going back to what I was saying before, that's something that I've always taken away from shit like that, is that if I have the option of having something in that way and not getting caught versus not having that something, I'd rather not have that something. I want anything and everything that I earn, and what I got coming told me, like Tony Montana would say, but nothing more, nothing less. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting portrayal of that type of character trait that a lot of people have, and I like the homage to one of my favorite movies, The Usual Suspects, that this movie has in the end. I don't know if you guys noticed when he comes out of the police precinct, and they, like the camera angle, it shows him like stop and look around in front of the precinct, and then walk towards his right, just like Kevin Spacey did in The Usual Suspects. Then the camera shows the angle of his feet, or his feet walking on the sidewalk, and then it goes up to him, and he takes out a cigarette and shit like that. So that little whole piece right there was like an homage to The Usual Suspects, or like a proverbial doffing of the cap to that movie. I'm not sure if you guys noticed that, but you probably did, because it was pretty obvious, and even I noticed it. And what else? The other thing that I saw, which wasn't a movie, it was actually a documentary that was pretty dope. It's on HBO. It's called, if I'm not mistaken, The Latin Explosion. And it's pretty much, it's a pretty good title, pretty much pretty self-explanatory. And it's about the migrating of Latino Americans to the United States, and the cultural effects that it's had on the country. And it gives you like 6 stats of how I don't remember the number, to be honest. It's 1 in 25 or 1 in 50 or 1 in 80 Americans are Latino, of Latino descent now, and by 2050 I think it's gonna be 1 in 3, which means that we fuck a lot and we multiply like motherfuckers. And but it's really, really interesting to just see like all the different layers of it showed the like culture through music, and really interesting, man. I feel like I saw it fucking weeks ago, so I'm not remembering everything from it that I wanted to speak about. But there were a few things that stood out, and it showed things from like Jose Feliciano, who's the Puerto Rican dude that sings Feliz Navidad, Prospero año y felicidad. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. That song. Which I guess is probably a good song to end the episode to. This is, after all, the last episode before Christmas, so yeah, that is a good fucking song to end this episode to. Let me just jot that down so I do not forget. And it shows how he was playing music, and he was kind of not well known, but he was beginning to become known. And he played, well, he was well known enough to play at I think it was at Yankee Stadium, the national anthem for a game opener. And he kind of played it. He didn't sing in the traditional way. He gave a little different flavor to it, like a bluesy type of flavor to it. And he got a lot of flack for that, and so much flack that people were booing him while he was singing it, and like racial slurs, and certain radio stations stopped playing his other music, And it wasn't until he came out with that song, which I'm going to play at the end of this episode, that he became widely accepted again and stuff like that. So it goes from that to Anthony Santos, Romeo Santos, selling out Yankee Stadium. I think it was like last year. I think it was that he did it. 2 nights in a row, 50,000 people a pop each. So it goes from that Feliciano to Romeo Santos, and like everything in between, and it goes through like the stories of Carlos Santana when he was like an unknown guitar player that was playing at like Woodstock, and I hope I have that right. But it was like a Woodstock looking thing, like Coachella type of like outdoor theater thing. I really think it was Woodstock. To Selena and her, her Tejano music influence, and her getting murdered and stuff like that. Gloria Estefan, which Gloria Estefan had a dope story in this one. I jotted down to share with you guys. Was according to her, when she remembers signs when she was a kid, when her parents came over from Cuba, stating like for rent signs that said no pets and no Cubans, which sounded funny when I heard it, to be honest, but it's fucked up, right? It's just funny in hindsight, like the ignorance of people back then. And they did show some like news clips from back then of people saying, these people should go back to where they came from, and we don't want them here, and stuff like that. Which I couldn't help but think about the sentiment now of people, of Americans now, when it comes to Syrian refugees, and how and by we, I just say, I'm not saying everybody, because some people do, some people don't, want the Syrian refugees to be allowed to come into the United States at certain rates, and also in the countries bordering Syria have like the same type of predicament with their respective citizens. And it's a different time. You could argue that now there's terrorism in the mix. Back then there wasn't, and I don't know, but it's all relative too, right? I mean, back then, it was said that the majority of the Cubans, or at least a significant portion of the Cubans that were coming into the country, were Cubans that Castro was releasing from the prisons. There were drug dealers, there were gang members, releasing them from the prisons there, so he wouldn't have to worry about them anymore, and dumping them into the United States. So they were the evil, quote unquote, of that time period, relative to now. Fast forward, post 9/11, and the heightened concerns of terrorism. You have the potential of terrorists posing as refugees, getting into the country, and wreaking havoc. So I definitely get the argument, or the concern, or the hesitation. But I don't know. I just couldn't help but like draw that parallel to that time then, and how beautiful and enriching and obviously I'm biased, I'm Dominican, but how beautiful and enriching the Hispanic culture has been to the American culture, and not just the Hispanic culture. The Irish culture, Italian culture, Asian culture, you name it, all. Give us your poor, your huddled masses, everybody that has come together to make this country what it is. And although I can't say I agree with the hesitation, but it's understandable to a degree. It's fucked up at the same time to turn your back on what got you to this point. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I gotta say about that. It's called The Lion Explosion. It's on HBO, and it's definitely worth a watch. It was pretty dope. I learned a lot of the Lion history that I hadn't known, and it was just interesting to see it in the way that they put it all together from the vantage point of music and entertainment. Now, aside from that, the Jets busted the Giants' ass. Well, they didn't bust their ass, but they beat them. And it was a very, very, very dope game that went down to the wire, went to overtime, and went down to the wire again, and the Jets pulled it off and took over New York. Let's go, Gang Green. Fuck you, Big Blue. Baby Blue now in my book. And then the Jets rode that wave and demolished the fucking Titans this past Sunday. 30,000 to 8 or some shit like that. And yeah, it's looking good. It's looking good for the Jets. I am clearly a Jets fan. Don't get me wrong though, I'm a very, very casual fan. I'm not going to be the guy spouting off statistics and knowing all the players on the team and the fucking potential picks that they have coming up and trades and coaches and line coaches and this and that and the other, but I definitely root for the Jets, and I'm very happy that they've been doing their thing and continue to do so. I think there's 3 weeks left of football. 2 of the games are divisional ones, against the Pats and against the Bills, and I'm definitely looking forward to taking both of those. And I don't even know, can they make it into the playoffs? I think they could. I'm not sure if they have to win the remaining 3 or how exactly. Fucking playoffs and wild cards and shit like that always confuse me in every fucking sport. But yeah, if you're not the first place team, you have to, I don't know, all the second place teams fight for a wild card spot or some shit like that. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but it would be dope to see the Jets in the playoffs. Now that said, like I told you guys last time, I ordered a few new books, which I'm trying to read more heavily as of late, and I ordered 3 of them. I'm midway through my first one, and it's called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. It's a collection of Zen and pre-Zen writings, and there are 3 pieces actually that I liked, and I'm going to share with you guys just how I did with the Tao Te Ching. It's that style of book, I guess. It has 3 books in one, and the first one is a collection of 101 Zen teachings or writings, I guess you can consider them teachings, and there's 3 of them that I'm going to share with you guys. The first one is number 14. And the first one is Muddy Road. Tanzan and Aikido were once traveling together down a muddy road. A heavy rain was still falling. Coming around a bend, they met a lovely girl in a silk kimono and sash, unable to cross the intersection. "Come on, girl," said Tanzan at once. Lifting her in his arms, he carried her over the mud. Aikido did not speak again until that night when they reached a lodging temple. Then he no longer could restrain himself. "We monks don't go near females," he told Tanzan, "especially not young and lovely ones. It is dangerous. Why did you do that?" "I left the girl there," said Tanzan. "Are you still carrying her?" That was pretty dope. Fucking let go of shit. let's see. The next one is 37. Fuck it. I can't read for shit. This one's kind of long, so bear with me. Publishing the Sutras. Tetsujin, a devotee of Zen in Japan, decided to publish the Sutras, which at that time were available only in Chinese. The books were to be printed with wood blocks in an edition of 7,000 copies, a tremendous undertaking. Tetsujin began by traveling and collecting donations for this purpose. A few sympathizers would give him 100 pieces of gold, but most of the time he received only small coins. He thanked each donor with equal gratitude. After 10 years, Tetsujin had enough money to begin his task. It happened that at that time, the Yuji River overflowed. Famine followed. Tetsujin took the funds he had collected for the books and spent them to save others from starvation. Then he began again his work of collecting. Several years afterwards, an epidemic spread over the country. Tetsujin again gave away what he had collected to help his people. For a third time, he started his work, and after 20 years, his wish was fulfilled. The printing blocks that produced the first edition of the Sutras can be seen today in the Obaku Monastery in Kyoto. The Japanese tell their children that Tetsujin made 3 sets of sutras, and that the first 2 invisible sets surpass even the last. That was pretty dope. Kind of like Don't Give Up type story, and of gumption and determination and will and the importance of gratitude in that piece that says there, he thanked each donor with equal gratitude. That stood out to me, as well as the selflessness of the dude, and how that portion of it was even more. That portion of his journey was even more important than the last one, which was accomplishing that monumental task of getting the wooden blocks that could print the sutras. That's pretty dope. And I got one more for you fuckers. Hope you guys like these. I do. Again, this is from Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, if you guys want to check it out. And the last one is number 49. A nun who was searching for enlightenment made a statue of Buddha and covered it with gold leaf. Wherever she went, she carried this golden Buddha with her. Years passed, and still carrying her Buddha, the nun came to live in a small temple in a country where there were many Buddhas, each one with its own particular shrine. The nun wished to burn incense before her golden Buddha. Not liking the idea of the perfume straying to the others, she devised a funnel through which the smoke would ascend only to her statue. This blackened the nose of the golden Buddha, making it especially ugly. So basically, don't be a greedy bitch. It's okay to share. And there's plenty to go around for everyone. If not, you wind up with a blackened nose. And that's it. That's from, again, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, the book that I'm currently reading. And if there are any other gems like those that I want to share with you guys, I will in future episodes once I finish reading the book. All right, so I got 2 questionnaire submissions for this week, and I'm going to wrap up the episode with those 2. For those of you that don't know what the Spun Today Questionnaire is, it's a 5-question questionnaire geared towards creative types, people that write, people that paint, people that draw, sing, whatever. Any, people that are into something. And it's 5 questions. I'm going to read them now from this particular questionnaire that I received, so you guys will know what the questions are. But just to give you an idea, it's how to get off your ass and do what you got to do. Now, the first person that submitted a questionnaire this week chose to remain anonymous, so I'm not going to say the person's name or anything like that, or where you can contact them if you would like to. But I, like all others, I am going to read their answers to the questionnaire, obviously, to help share their insights and their tips with other people that could hopefully have a ripple effect of motivation for others, including myself. Okay, question number 1 is, relating to your craft, do you remember the first thing that you ever wrote or created? And this anonymous person stated, the very first thing that I remember creating was a mini book in first grade. I drew pictures and had to write a story to go with them. I think I still have it somewhere. It was plain awful. I cannot draw, but I remember feeling very proud that I created something. And that's the dopest part of that is that you still have it somewhere. And I would say definitely find where that somewhere is before you lose it, and keep it in a safe place that you can look back on and cherish, and who knows, give it to your kids one day, and just look back on it. It's really cool to have a piece of your childhood like that, especially if it's tied to a specific passion that you have for something, like in this example, like writing. I remember when I was in like 8 or 9 years old, and I mentioned this in the past, so for those of you that have heard this already, bear with me, I'm sorry, but it's pretty fitting to this response in the questionnaire. The first short story that I ever wrote, I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I remember it was a cross between like an army movie and Encino Man, and it was called The 1,000-Year-Old Soldier, and I wrote it in a black and white marble notebook. And the premise was a soldier got trapped under an avalanche and turned into a block of ice, and then when he thawed out, he realized that 1,000 years had passed and he was in the future. And I don't remember much else aside from that, but I do remember writing it, and I remember obviously the premise of it and even the notebook that I wrote it in. And I remember I had this metallic box that had this Fugazi little key lock on it, and I remember keeping it there. And I used to use that box and store my quote unquote private stuff in there and top secret stuff. I'm fucking 8 or 9 years old. And long story short, I stopped using the box. It was like in the basement somewhere, or wound up like in I don't even know where it wound up. But fast forward to years later, we moved and everything. I found that box in the garage, and I remember like when I saw it, when I found it, like I remembered right away of like the book and the short story and just like stuff that I had in there. I was like, oh shit, I can't believe this box still like exists. I had completely forgotten about it. And I went to it, I opened it, and it was full of like my father's tools and shit like that. And I never got to like see the book again, but it would have been pretty dope if I had. So imagine that story, your version of, and you actually finding and still having that picture book now. And that's a much happier ending than finding a bunch of screwdrivers and stuff in its place. But yeah, find that. The next question is, what inspires you to write or create? And the response was, I find that I always have a muse. Sometimes that muse is a person, sometimes it's emotion itself. I use them all to fuel my writing. And I couldn't agree more. Inspiration strikes very randomly, very sporadically, sometimes very intentionally. And yeah, I'm the exact same way. I could hear a song that inspires me to write. I could hear a quote in a movie. And that concept of the muse is just like, you need to physically get yourself to a pen and paper or, a keyboard and let it flow through you and onto the screen or onto the page. And I'm completely with you on that. The next question is, what is a hobby that you have that is unrelated to your craft? And the response is, I'm an avid reader. I read hardcover books and listen to Audible. I am constantly reading all different types of books. And that is something I'm trying to do more and more of, especially as I've gotten into writing, obviously. They kind of go hand in hand. And believe it or not, reading is something that I used to fucking hate. Very much so. Never used to read at all. And now I really enjoy it. I'm just not the best reader there is out there, but definitely enjoy the process. And audiobooks are dope too for that help me out with a few books that were kind of like dense and like tough to like read. And that I really enjoyed the audiobooks of, like, what was it? Republic Lost by Lawrence Lessig. And also one of my favorite books, Mastery by Robert Greene. And those were pretty dope. And you guys should definitely check out audiobooks if you haven't, or like if you're in that kind of like gray area that you want to, get exposed to certain things that you want to read, but you really don't like make the time like for it and stuff like that. Definitely check out audiobooks. I have to download more of them actually. Let's see. The next question is, how do you get yourself to sit down and do your work when you're not motivated to? And the response is, that's tough. When I do feel, that's tough. When I do not feel inspired, I draw on other people's energy. I send out questions on social media that will strike chords of emotion in people. This works well for me. And that's a really good idea. I guess that's kind of like what this questionnaire is like for me. That's like my version of is sending out this questionnaire, and it helps spark, the recording of this podcast, for example, which has always been kind of like a closed loop, right? The podcast makes me want to write or motivates me to write, keeps me honest, keeps me writing, and vice versa. Writing gives me content for the podcast, and it's kind of like a circle that purposely is set up to motivate me, to push me in the direction of where I want to be with both writing and podcasting. And that's a really good idea with the asking questions like on social media and just getting like different feedback from different people. This person actually, as well as the other person, that the other person didn't choose to remain anonymous, but this one did, so that's why I'm just saying this person. I met through, or quote unquote met through Cyberdust, which is more Cubans like social texting service thing that he started, or that he's a part of. And it's pretty interesting. I'm getting used to the I don't know, the format of it. Is that the right word for it? I'm getting used to using it basically, but it's I hear it's similar to like Snapchat, but Snapchat I've never used. Except this does not give you an option to like save. Like Snapchat supposedly gives you the option to like save, the chats or whatever. Cyberdust does not, and Cyberdust as a company does not have like any servers or anything like that. So somebody sends you a message or a blast, like they call, or a dust. A dust would be like a DM, and a blast would be like a post. And when people see it or read it, once they open it, the clock starts, and it's a certain amount of seconds before it disappears, and it's not stored on any other servers or anything like that, which I would imagine means like low overhead for them, I guess. But yeah, that's the whole concept of it. It's like truly, nobody's reading your shit type of forum. And that's where I met both of these people. So yeah, I definitely get that, sending stuff out through social media to, spark conversation and interest and stuff like that, and draw on people's energy. And the final question of the questionnaire is, do you have any advice for other writers or creators, whether they're new, seasoned, or otherwise? And the response was, write your heart. People can tell if you're not writing from the very depths of your soul. If you always write for that, you will always touch someone. And that was my favorite response to your questionnaire, and I couldn't agree more. And you had, how do I say this? Sometimes like with stuff that I write, I'm kind of like, that feeling of nobody's gonna get this except for me, or this isn't good enough for anybody else to read and stuff like that. And a lot of the time it is, don't get me wrong. But in terms of my stuff, but as long as it's coming from that place, from that like genuine, real place, it's gonna reach somebody, it's gonna touch somebody, and you have no way of gauging who it does and who it doesn't touch. And I've written about this in certain free writing posts, and the quote unquote announcement that I'm going to tell you guys about right after the next questionnaire. I get into it in there as well. But I think it's your responsibility as a creator, as a writer specifically, to just let the thing out, let it out, and allow it to have the chance of reaching and touching someone. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, it at least meant that to you, and it was therapeutic in that way for you. And you are someone too, right? So yeah, thank you very much, person that shall remain anonymous per your request. And I really appreciate you taking the time to fill out the survey, the questionnaire, and it was a great one. Thank you very much. And we have one more questionnaire, like I told you guys. This one, let me just make sure. This person said it does not matter in terms of them remaining anonymous or not. And if you choose that, I'm gonna say who you are. And this person is Amy Marcello. So Amy, thank you in advance for taking the time. Question number 1 of the survey, relating to your craft: do you remember the first thing that you ever wrote or created? And Amy's response was, before I could write, my mom used to have me tell her a story, and she would write down everything I said, word for word, even when it didn't make sense. The stories were usually about birds or animals that like to play and sometimes get into trouble. It is nice looking back and reading the grammatically incorrect details to a young and very vivid imagination. And I thought that when I read the questionnaire, when I received it, I thought that was like such a dope idea. I was actually going to tell my brother to do that with my niece when she gets old enough, when she's actually making like sense, because now she's barely a month out from her, not even a month out of her 1 year birthday. So she's still like speaking gibberish and stuff like that. And she knows how to say cat and no. But definitely when she starts making sense, that would be a pretty cool idea to do something like this and have her create stories and write them down and give them to her in the future. And it's really dope that your mother did that for you and kind of planted that seed of creating stories, I guess, for you, which is really, really cool. Definitely a different version of reading your kids bedtime stories, right? Allow them to create their own. That seems pretty cool. It's definitely something I would want to do. Thanks for sharing that. And the next question is, what inspires you to write or create? And Amy's response is emotional reactions to anger, heartbreak, empathy, revelations, and aha moments. And yeah, tying into the previous questionnaire that I read, it's, inspiration literally comes from anything and everything and anywhere. And I guess in Amy's case, she seems to be more of the it comes from places of like heightened emotion, whether it's like empathy or heartbreak, like she says, or anger, or revelations and aha moments. Those are like peaks in emotion, right? But it's awesome that you can take any of those emotions from it, like any of those peaks, and channel them into creating, which is key, which is awesome, because all that emotion, all that rawness, all that realness comes out in your writing. How much of it comes out is obviously completely up to you, and it's something that, as like writers and creators, that's what we're molding and shaping and honing and fine-tuning, right? But it's definitely dope to have that ability to steer it in that direction. The next question is, what is a hobby that you have that is unrelated to your craft? And she wrote, I love to dance. And that's pretty cool. I actually do not love to dance. I'm probably like the worst Dominican ever. And my people are very, very alegre, happy, dancey type people. And I'm very much so not. More of the introverted, quiet, leave me alone persuasion. But I could dance, not well or anything like that. I'm no fucking Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing. But I know how to dance, and the once every fucking leap year when I do get the itch to dance, I'll like dance my ass off at that one party and then never dance again for years to come. So I definitely get the appeal of it. When I look back and think of like those specific moments when I've enjoyed it, and dancing in itself is like very creative and very free, very, very flowy. You follow certain preset rules, I guess, and steps in certain types of dancing. If you're just doing, I don't know, not all, I guess, but yeah, I see that connection. It's pretty dope. It's pretty cool. The next question is, how do you get yourself to sit down and do your work when you're not motivated to? And Amy responded, I try to find a quiet place without distraction. Sometimes music helps, but other times I need complete silence. And that was interesting to me, because I don't know, I guess it depends on my mood, because, and judging from your response, I guess it's the same for you. Like sometimes you need complete silence, and sometimes music, some sort of like background, like white noise, kind of gets you going. And I wonder from reading it, from reading your response, Amy, if you mean that, let's say you don't want to write. You don't, because this is what I meant by the question, which, if you didn't get that, that's completely my fault for the way it's worded. But when you're supposed to write, which should be like all the time, right? If you're into writing, how do you get yourself to physically get up and go sit down and write? And if I don't know, I guess I'm not sure if that's what you meant by your response, but if you meant that you could literally turn off the TV, make everything quiet, and then that gets you in the mood to write, that's fucking amazing. That's like a switch, like an on switch that you have there that you've disciplined and trained yourself to do. So it's kind of like, because I kind of feel like the answer that you gave is kind of after you get yourself to write, you just have to, after you sat down and you kind of made that push in the direction of writing, that you kind of then have to like shut everything off, and then so shit could start flowing and you could start writing. But yeah, that's like the toughest part for all of us, and I think that's a pretty well known and understood similarity amongst writers, that just actually sitting down and doing the work that's the hard part, like getting that push of motivation and inspiration to go and actually physically do the work. And lastly, the last question of the last questionnaire that we have for the day is, do you have any advice for other writers or creators, whether they're new, seasoned, or otherwise? And Amy responded, writing is the easy part. Don't let rejection letters be the demise of your passion. There are so many resources and directions to explore. The internet can allow your writing to touch any audience you want, and I think finding that in today's world is where you'll find the most value and have the most impact. And I could not agree with you more. Again, Amy, thank you very much for taking the time to fill out the questionnaire. That was a very, very dope response. And kind of the perfect segue to the announcement that I told you guys last week that I would have for you this week, which I'm not where I want to be with it, but I'm enough into it where I could announce it to, one, light a fire under my ass to make sure I get it done, and two, keep my word of having an announcement for you guys. So, like I said, like Amy said in this last response, writing is the easy part. Don't let rejection letters be the demise of your passion. There are so many resources and directions to explore. I am in the process of self-publishing my first book, and that's the announcement. Ta-da! But no, like, the point is, like Amy said, there's so many outlets and what's the word I'm looking for? Opportunity and facilidade to pursue what you want if you really want it. Nowadays, especially with like mediums like podcasts and resources like Amazon, for example, and KDP Select, which is what I'm learning to use to and programs like Scrivener, which I'm using to compile and format and put together my book. And it would be a shame not to capitalize on that. And I know everybody's been through moments in their lives where hindsight is obviously 20/20, but we've all been through moments where we look back at certain points in our lives and say, damn, I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I would have done that differently. Damn, I didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And I didn't want that to happen this go around through this phase of my life. And which is why, you know, I kind of jumped on the, you know, with the fuel of the passion that I have for it. I jumped on the idea of pursuing writing on a more serious level, as well as podcasting as well. And that said, I wanted to obviously, you know, be published, and every writer wants that. And I was thinking some time ago, like months ago, that the first thing I would publish was a collection of short stories once I had enough to you know, fill up a respectable sized book. And at the same time, I was like learning about the whole self-publishing industry, you know, indie writers and stuff like that. I listened to, you know, podcasts like Joanna Penn's podcast, and just tons and tons of different tutorials and videos on YouTube about it, from different authors, different tips. Authors that go on other podcasts like Brian Callen's and to Joe Rogan Experience, etc. And I'm one of those people that I could get to a certain point with you know, reading articles and watching videos and listening to podcasts on how to do something, but I have to like go through the actual process to gain like the full understanding of it. And I think that's true for a lot of people and for most things that each of us do. So, being that I didn't have the content, or I do not have the content yet for short stories, and I didn't want to, you know, just slap together crap and put it out there, I kind of had a little aha moment, to coin the phrase from one of the earlier questions of the questionnaire, from Amy's questionnaire, actually. And I was looking back on all the free writing, like all these free writing episodes that we have up here in the Spun Today podcast that we've put out. And, you know, those pieces that I've read, you know, I have like years, you know, going back, I think 3+ years worth of content with that style of writing. And one of my favorite books, if not my favorite, is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And it's kind of the book that I'm putting together is in that style, in that format, where you have different pieces like that. Or if you look at something like the Tao Te Ching, or like the book I'm reading now, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, it's not like it's a nonfiction book, but it's not like it's not like a cohesive, you know, cohesive is the wrong word. I hope it's fucking cohesive. It's not each piece is independent of each other, but there's a through line of motivation and, you know, getting over your own bullshit and pursuing what it is that you want to pursue throughout all the pieces that are in and of themselves separate pieces, as you guys have seen through like all the free writing posts that I've put either on my website, spuntoday.com/free writing, and that I've shared with you guys throughout all the past free writing episodes. So that's pretty much what it is. The book is going to be a collection of certain free writing posts, some of which have been on the podcast and on the website, and some of which haven't. Most of which was edited for, you know, purposes of the book. You know, like I said, I didn't just want to, you know, slap something together, put it out there so I could learn the actual process of the self-publishing. I want to put something that I could be proud of, something quality, and hopefully that you guys could enjoy as well. And as well as, you know, the secondary purpose of actually learning the process of self-publishing and, you know, buying a barcode and the ISBN and you know, putting the book on releasing the book as an ebook at first and via KDP Select for 90 days for free, and gaining reviews and rates on Amazon to make the book popular, and so on and so forth, and go through the steps that I've just abstractly learned about, and that I have to actually go through to fully understand. So that said, the book is almost completely done. Just doing like some final, setting up the copyright page, the acknowledgements page, writing my thank yous and stuff like that, and doing the final formatting, which is a bitch, by the way, that I've literally spent the last, I think, like 3 days, several hours on. Let me see. Yesterday was Sunday. I spent, no lie, I think like 7 hours worth of watching different videos and tweaking and trying to get this shit to work and to get formatted. And Scrivener is a really powerful tool. I couldn't imagine doing this shit like on Microsoft Word or something like that. And but it's like one of those, such a powerful tool that takes a lot to fucking learn it. And that's what I'm just in the process of doing. So the goal is to get it out before the end of the year. So hopefully by the end of, definitely by the next episode of this podcast, which would be airing on the 31st of December, it should be out. So you guys can pick it up, check it out, and hopefully those posts and that writing could help you guys in a similar way that it's helped me. And that's ultimately the end goal of this entire process. And that's it, folks. Amy, looking for your last name here. Amy Marcello, thank you very much again for filling out the questionnaire. I really appreciate it. And other person that shall remain anonymous, anonymous, thank you very much as well. And that's the episode, guys. I appreciate you guys a lot. I really appreciate you guys listening to the podcast and listening to me ramble and bullshit all the time, and share my writing and stuff like that with you guys. And I really, really do appreciate it. And in closing, to support the podcast, and you guys know all the ways that you can support already, especially if you're podcast fans. First and foremost, rate and review the podcast on iTunes and or Stitcher. And you guys can also listen to the podcast on YouTube. You can, rate and review it there, or like it, or whatever. Sign up to my newsletter. Definitely pumping up the newsletter so you guys can stay in the know for when the book is available and the book is out, as well as any and all future writings like short stories and episodes of the podcast and stuff like that. I'm not going to bombard you guys with like spam or anything like that, but it's a good way to stay in touch. Sign up to my newsletter. You can find it at spuntoday.com/contact. It's at the bottom of the page. All you have to do is fill out your name and your email address and click submit. And aside from that, do your Christmas shopping if you haven't already, and support the podcast at the same time by shopping through my Amazon banner. And that's located at spuntoday.com/affiliate links. And you can find banners to iTunes and to Amazon on there, PayPal donations. If you guys are feeling in the giving Christmas spirit mood, feel free to do so. And what else? Fill out questionnaires if you guys want to be featured in any of these episodes, like the 2 questionnaires that we had today. And if you guys feel that you have anything worth sharing,